Hey guys, Trevor here with E-commerce Paradise. Welcome to today's video where I'm going to tell you about how to sell branded products online with high-ticket dropshipping. And if this is your first time watching the channel, definitely hit the subscribe button and smash that like button and get my free niches list, ecommerceparadise.com/99 niches, best niches for high-ticket dropshipping, high-ticket products that are profitable today. Let's talk about branded products. First example I want to give you that's not something that we sell, but it is high-ticket, is an iPhone. So if you try to go into the marketplace and sell iPhones, it's not going to work very well because Apple doesn't allow online-only dealers to sell their products. You have to have a physical storefront or some kind of a warehouse, and you have to invest in stock. There's also a long process you have to go through, and it's very difficult. So I've never tried to sell iPhones online, but iPhones are branded. If you think about the smartphone industry in general, there's lots of different generic brands of smartphones, then there's a few name brands, okay? It's kind of the same way it works with every industry. There's usually a few name brands that everybody kind of recognizes, and a lot of different brands that we kind of call just generic brands. Maybe they're just different kind of like private label style brands, or they just haven't put as much time and energy into their marketing and materials as the name brands have. And so if you want to get into a new industry as a new retailer, you have to understand how to go about trying to get these name brands to want to sell through your store, because they're usually harder to get. It's a different process to go through to get those name brands. Other people refer to them as gold suppliers. They're just like the best and biggest companies in an industry, and those are really the ones you want to work with in the long run because they have the highest search volume, the most sales, and usually the best customer service and warranty support, and they usually have just a bigger business and better business altogether. So you can start a high-ticket dropshipping business with generic brands, and we usually do. Generic brands still have a brand name. They're just not as well known. They're not really as prominent in the marketplace. They might not have as many sales as the bigger name brands, and they're kind of fighting. They're in competition with these big name brands. They might even make very similar products, and those products, because they're so similar, people might be willing to go with the generic brand. So it's a great place to start with high-ticket dropshipping. Start by getting the generic brands, because oftentimes they're a lot easier to set up with, and they're a lot easier to sell online because people are looking for them. They're less expensive product and stuff like that. They don't need to buy it from a super well-known retailer. They can buy it from almost any online store that offers competitive offers and has social proof and reviews and a good guarantee and all that stuff and a good return policy. Okay, so that's the best place to start usually. But once you want to grow, or even just in the beginning when you want to get these name brands on board, there's a different process you have to go about it, and usually it requires a lot more follow-up, okay, and a lot more content building and social proof building, and you have to also make an introduction to the brand. You have to talk to them on the phone. You have to build rapport with them. You have to prove to them that you can bring them sales, that you can do better than their current dealer base is doing, because if not, they're probably not going to want to set up with you, okay? Like with the case with Apple, for instance, is that Apple's not going to let you sell their iPhones unless you have a really good presence already, brick and mortar store and an online store probably even. They're probably not going to set up with you maybe even until you make a minimum investment in their stock. A lot of name brands have that policy where like you can't even start selling their products even in your own store, much less online and drop shipping them, until you make like a maybe $5,000 or $10,000 investment in their product line up front. So sometimes it's not really worth it in the beginning to go after these name brands. Obviously, we're trying to start with a lean business model, and it's hard to do that in the beginning to make that upfront investment. Let me give you the example of a bike shop, because I actually had a bike shop at one time back in 2015, and I learned a lot through that process. So what I was doing back then was I was dropshipping bicycles on a website, right? And I was working with generic brands, and we were doing pretty good sales, but I wanted to expand the business. I also wanted to get into selling other brands that all these other online retailers didn't have access to. So I went to a trade show, and a trade show in the industry was, I forget the name of it now, but the trade show in the industry is like the #1 trade show in the bicycle industry. And I went there and I met with a lot of the different suppliers, and I met with all the different brand advocates and stuff like that of these major brands. And I asked them, like, what's the deal, guys? How do I get on board with you guys as a dropshipper? They said normally they don't dropship. What usually they do is they ship a pallet of their products to a retailer. That retailer unboxes it, sets it up in the showroom, and then has a few units in the back in the warehouse so that they can sell the unit from the showroom to people that are walking in or calling on the phone or buying online, and then they ship it out from their warehouse. In order to do that, the minimum investment for some of these brands was like $10, $20, or $30,000. So not only would I have to start a physical retail store that would cost me $10, $20, $30, $40,000 just to open, because with a physical retail store you have to do all the merchandising, you have to paint the walls, you have to pay insurance, you have to put all the displays up, you have to buy a POS system. There's a lot you have to put into, and much less like the entire warehouse, which requires a whole separate organizational system and shelving and shipping and packing department and returns department, and warehouses are a whole big project, right? It can cost tens of thousands of dollars to set one of those things up. So in order to make the upfront initial investment for a bike shop that carries name brand bikes like Giant or Trek, Cannondale, all these big name brands, it can cost a business owner upwards of $100,000 to $300,000 just for a minimum investment. It's very similar to buying into some kind of a franchise. I did a bike shop on a very low investment. What I did was I bought a flex space in Canoga Park, California, which is just outside of Los Angeles. And the flex space was basically a unit in kind of a industrial area that was cheaper than units in retail areas. So there wouldn't be a whole lot of walk-by traffic and walk-in traffic. The one reason why I bought it is because it was across the street from a prominent bike path. So I could potentially get people coming from the bike path to the shop and then coming back and buying things from there again. So my plan in the long run was to have a bike shop where I would hire a service person and be able to service bicycles from people that came in throughout the day, and then they would have name brand bicycles, so they would see other name brand products at the store. They would probably buy all the accessories and stuff like that. They would upgrade their bike, and they would probably get new bikes from my store, when they were ready to get a new bike. It was in a corner of the area where I was in where there were really many other retailers, so it was a good location. But I didn't really have the right background or experience to make the most of it. I didn't hire a mentor either. The mentor I was working with, we knew about internet marketing. We didn't really know about physical retail marketing. It's a whole different world, okay? It requires a lot more in-person contact, and you've got to hire a real person that's there 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, on the weekends, so maybe 2 or 3 people that are there. And they got to be able to provide the service, and you've got to be able to, accept the merchandise in, display the merchandise really well, and you've got to have a good environment, okay? So what I was going for wasn't really the right thing for that location, so I kind of made a mistake there. And what I learned was that with the upfront investment, even when I invested like $10,000 in one of the brands, I think it was Fuji, and bought a bunch of their road bikes and assembled them and put them in the showroom and everything. Number one, the space was too small to sell a bunch of different types of bicycles. It was a fairly small retail space, and so I couldn't fit all the different types of bicycles into the little spaces I wanted to. I wanted to sell road bikes, electric bikes, beach cruisers, fixed gear bikes, tandem bikes. Like, there's all these different types I wanted to sell, but the space just wasn't big enough for that. I would have needed a huge retail place, like one of the big bicycle retailers has, a big warehouse basically. But I didn't. And I didn't want to hire all that staff. I didn't have the upfront investment. I didn't have the experience or really even wanted to do that. I just wanted to stick behind a computer and work from home because that's what I like to do. So after a while, the shop was just like really disorganized and stuff like that. And I didn't really have the money to hire somebody. And I didn't really want to put that money out there because not only in California do you have to hire somebody, you have to pay payroll taxes to pay them, and you have to pay upfront for all this stuff, insurance and all that. And it's just a pain in the butt, right? It's not really worth it in the long run unless you have a big plan and you have financing and you're actually going to go after it. So I decided to shut it all down about 6 to 8 months later. And luckily, it was still within the return time frame for the distributor, so I packed a bunch of the parts and stuff up and sent it back to the distributor because they had come out to the bike shop, their rep, and just basically sold me on a bunch of different things I didn't really need. And I was just excited about opening the shop, so I was like, that's fine, let's just do it. And at that point, I was making so much profit with my online business, like $10,000 a month net profit, that I was like, let's just reinvest all of this into the bike shop. And I did, but it ended up being a big mistake, unfortunately. And I wanted to pivot to maybe doing a skate shop because that's what I'm a little bit more passionate about, but even that, it's like lower margins and, again, upfront investment and stuff like that. And it just wasn't going to work out. So I decided to go ahead and close up shop, sell everything. And luckily, a friend of mine through the skateboard industry who owns a skateboard distributor actually ended up being interested in the space and moving from his warehouse-only space to a flex space where he could have a retail storefront, get some more name brands on board on his brand card, and actually be able to sell those through the online store as well, which is what he's doing successfully now. And he has a business where he actually custom prints skateboards. And that was kind of one of the things I was thinking of getting into, is like, maybe if I made my own bicycle brand, where I custom created bicycles, I could warehouse them there at that flex space affordably, and then sell them online and ship them out. And that, again, would have cost a lot of upfront investment, would have been basically have my own private label bicycle brand, which would have been very expensive. And it's just not a direction I really wanted to go, and it's just not a direction I ended up going in the first place. The thing about having a warehouse or any physical space is that you really end up dealing with all the same things you would have to deal with when you have a day job, right? You have to show up at a certain time. Being a manager of employees is a pain in the butt. You got to babysit people sometimes, and I just really didn't want to do that. It's not my life. I have virtual assistants. I pay them, $3 an hour. They work in the Philippines. They do a lot of the work for me to build my dropshipping stores and, build my digital products and help me, market my courses and stuff like that. And it's actually really profitable that way. So, that's what I like doing. I like working from home, relaxing, waking up whenever I want to wake up, going to bed whenever I want to go to bed. I don't need an alarm clock. I don't need to do anything specific besides client meetings and just making sure I'm taking care of client projects, which is what I do on a regular basis. And for this model, it works for me and, my needs. The reason why I wanted to escape the 9-to-5 day job in the first place because I wanted that lifestyle. But what I learned the hard way was that with this business model, it's very difficult to sell the name brand products. Okay, you really have to work your butt off to get your foot in the door. And when you do get the foot in the door, you also then need to work your butt off to sell and bring them some sales. Because if you don't, they'll drop you. And I've been dropped by a few different retailers because I, started stores and ended up not going with them because I didn't have the right backing, the right, customer service agents at the time and stuff like that. And now that I have a really good team, I'm expanding a lot more again, and I'm actually getting some name brands on board now that I didn't even have before. So I'm really happy about that. But just so you guys know, you can sell name brand products, especially high-ticket name brand products. You just have to follow up like crazy with these brands, and you have to prove to them that you know what you're doing, and then that's how you get the account. I had one student that told me in order to get one of the name brands, he actually literally had to fly out from where he was in Maryland all the way to their office, I think it was in Los Angeles or something like that, and meet with them in person. I don't even think he had an appointment set up. He literally just walked in there and, asked to talk to the person he had been speaking on the phone with. He had spoken to this person over and over and over again for like 6 months, and they just still refused. And he finally actually walked in there in person and talked to them about it. And once he sat down and talked to them, they decided, okay, we'll go ahead and set you up an account and see how you can do. He kind of gave them like a test period kind of thing, like, hey, just give it like 1 month or 2 months. If I don't bring you anything, you can drop me. And he did that with 2 different name brands, and he's got them both on board now. He's selling them both successfully because he does the high-ticket dropshipping the same way I teach in my system. And he's one of my students, and he's done very well since he started working with me, so I'm very proud of him. And that's just what you guys got to do. So just understand the difference between generic and name brands. And yes, you can dropship name brand products sometimes. There's going to be a lot more competition on name brand products through physical retail storefronts. You got to understand that. And because of that, you're going to have to offer as good a customer service as you possibly can. Okay, sometimes you're even going to have to work with those physical storefronts if there's like a service contract or service required on the product. And so you got to just be nice and understand that these storefronts, they're not going to like you right off the bat. Okay, they're going to want to steal that business from you, but you don't really have much of a choice sometimes when it comes to service. If you can find like a done-for-you service that goes to that person's home and fixes that product in the home, that's better. Maybe a service like that doesn't actually have like a physical store is good, and one that doesn't compete directly with you on the retail sales. That's great, because otherwise there's a conflict of interest and it's difficult. But you got to do what you got to do. With all the competition from retail storefronts, you're going to have to offer more bonuses on your website for these branded products, okay, in order to sell them really good. And you're going to have to provide discounts. Sometimes the brands, oftentimes these name brands, are not going to want their products to be discounted on your store. So you have to be really careful with that. If they have a MAP pricing, you've got to ask them, do you allow discounts? And make sure that you're staying on board with them, because I've dealt with some name brands that are really difficult to deal with when it comes to couponing and discounts, and they're just going to drop you and not even think twice about it. Like I used to have a gun safe store. I still sell safes on another store, but I used to have a gun safe specific store that now sold, and I was working with a company called AMSEC, American Security, and American Security is a big name brand in the industry. They won't even sell direct. You have to get them through distributors, and but they're still going to check your website and make sure that you're complying to their MAP policies. MAP stands for minimum advertised price, if you don't know. And suppliers will make sure that you're selling at MAP. If you're selling under MAP, then they're going to drop you or put you on suspension or something like that. Some suppliers are more lenient than others when it comes to coupon codes, but coupon codes specifically can really ruin your relationship with a supplier if they don't want you putting coupon codes on the product. You got to be careful. So anything, your competitors will get very jealous of you if you're making sales and their sales drop. So be careful. If it's on the product page, make sure that they know, and make sure you put excludes this supplier or whatever, and then it actually works that way. If you have it on an email pop-up, make sure the same thing, it says excludes that supplier. And if you have it on any other page of your website, make sure it says excludes that supplier. So yeah, that's one of the key tips for keeping these name brands. You got to be really careful with them and just build rapport constantly and try to build that relationship, guys, because you can get really good offers and discounts. You can get some of the best margins from these name brand suppliers because they really want to support their dealer network. Oftentimes, name brand suppliers will not sell direct to the public themselves, which is one of the best things about them. And they may even refer business to you through their website, okay? Because they want to support their dealer network, especially their brick and mortar network if they're an industry that requires service like bicycles and other things like that. Okay, so keep that in mind, and yeah, go out there and get some name brands, guys. Those are the best brands to have on board. But just keep in mind also, when you first start selling them, they're going to be difficult to make sales, right? So you might have kind of unprofitable ad spend at the very beginning. A thing about name brand search terms is that they have a lot more search volume. So if you just add them right to your Google Shopping ads, they might take up all your budget in one day, and you might not make any sales because they have a ton of competition, people looking around, they get better deals elsewhere, they buy them at their local store, whatever it is, right? So you got to be careful. Maybe even build a whole separate campaign just for that particular brand, which is totally possible. And then you won't kill the budget for your other brands that you're still selling, the generic brands, right? So keep that in mind, and just do your best to provide the best customer service to your customers, no matter what, whether it's a name brand or a generic brand. If something happens and it is the supplier's fault, don't blame it on your supplier. Okay, blame it on yourself. Take responsibility for that and let your customer know you're going to fix it, and then do whatever it takes to fix it. Oftentimes, I'll just tell my team hey, if it costs under $100 to fix, just do it without my approval. Just take that and just go ahead and handle that, because it takes the decision-making process out of my mind. I don't then have to fret about it. I know I'm going to make more money on another sale later. I just want to take care of this customer so they're happy. And oftentimes people that are very unhappy and have buyer's remorse are the worst people to deal with if you try to screw them over, okay? If you don't give them all their money back. And when someone has buyer's remorse and you give them their money back, they feel really good. The opposite happens. They're so happy and they're totally down to do business with you again in the future, or refer you to their friends, or they just have a good feeling towards you. And oftentimes it's almost just that good feeling, that good karma that comes to you later on in other places in your business. So take care of your customers, guys. It's what Amazon does. It's what they've always done, is held their customers to the highest regard and taking care of them first. It's one of the reasons why they've grown so big. So model after Amazon, model after a company like Zappos, takes care of their customers really good. Those are the best e-commerce businesses, the ones that have the best customer service, okay? And best customer service is customer by customer, whatever it takes. Even if that whole product is damaged and it's going to cost a bunch of money to ship it back to the supplier, just refund your customers, send them a shipping label. Even though you're out a few $1,000s or whatever to begin with, just hopefully you can trust that customer to ship it back, guys, because what you don't want is somebody ranting and raving about you online, telling everybody how terrible you are on some forum or some social media account, or leaving you a negative review on Facebook. That's worth the money and the potential risk it is to get that product shipped back. It's worth to avoid that, okay? So really though, consider yourself spending $100 just to keep yourself safe on the internet from these people. And when you have a problem customer, guys, refund them and just don't do business with them again. Just let some other retailer deal with them. People are problem customers sometimes, and you'll run into these sometimes, whether you're selling name brands or generic brands, and just try not to deal with them as much, guys. It's a lot easier to do business when you don't deal with problem customers. You'll live an easier life. You might not make as much money, but that money you make is going to be better money. My best tip right there. So get out there, get some name brands, and if you like this content, definitely subscribe to the channel, smash that like button. And if you haven't got my free niches list, get it at ecommerceparadise.com/99niches. I also have a free mini course for beginners. Link is in the description below. I have a bunch of other offers as well, so check that out. If you're interested in getting started with high ticket dropshipping and you want some sort of a step-by-step course, I have one of those below. I also have a done for you service where I build you a Shopify store for you. Check that out below as well, and you can get private coaching from me as well. Everything is below in the description. Look forward to working with you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.